inefficient, and this is really important. People get very frustrated when they watch our political process because it moves very slow. The complicated manner in which constitutional government is organized often means it takes a long time to get things done. What I don't think people understand is inefficiency was seen as an advantage by the framers. They didn't want things to move very quickly. The difficulties would help prevent the abuse of power and make it more likely that when a decision was finally made, it was going to be a good one. And then dictators, very efficient. If they want something done, they say it and it gets done. It doesn't matter how horrible it is. So the inefficient manner that our government has, it can stop the abuse of power and say, wait a minute, we need to think about this longer, make sure that this is really what the people want. When the framers, founding fathers, were trying to figure out how they were going to create this new government, they had a couple to choose from history that they were familiar with, this idea of a republic. The founders admired the republics of ancient Greece and Rome. Obviously, these people were very well read and they knew the history of ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And this idea of an indirect democracy, this idea of a republic, they felt it would be devoted to promoting the public good, doing the best for the most people. They felt that the political authority shared by all or most of the citizens, and not by a hereditary monarch, by a king or a queen. And at that time, monarchs, kings and queens, was the most common type of government in the 18th century, which is the 1700s. So they wanted all of the citizens, or most of the citizens, to have the authority, not this idea of rule by a king or queen. And then political authority exercised through the community's chosen representatives in government. And that's really what a republic is. The community chooses representatives, and it's the representatives who run the government, and that's what we have. So in the United States, we actually have a republic. A lot of people would like to say we are a democracy, but we are actually not. A democracy traditionally meant a form of government in which ultimate authority was based on the will of the majority. And in its purest form, democracy also meant a government in which members participated directly in their own governance, not through representatives. So anytime something were to happen in government, everyone would have to meet, and everyone would vote directly on every single thing that needed to be voted on. So you're looking at the need to have very, very small groups. In New England, they have these town meetings where everyone in the town would gather and they would vote directly on everything that was going to affect that town. That would absolutely be impossible to have what we would call a direct democracy here in the United States. Far too many people. This is a picture of James Madison, and he is considered the father of our Constitution. When we start getting into the Constitution, we'll go into much greater detail about the role that he played, but very, very important founding father. And James Madison felt that direct democracies must be confined to small communities because people administer the government. Everyone had to get together, so he realized that it would be impossible to have a democracy in its purest form. In a republic, the people's representatives administer the government, not the people themselves, allowing it to be extended over a much larger area. He felt this would be the best option for America, that law would be made and administered by representatives elected by a large number of people. So each member of Congress that's in the House of Representatives actually represents between 500 and 600,000 people each. And then the senators all represent their states, and then obviously the president represents everyone in the United States. So it would be it'd be impossible for us to all vote on every single issue. So we elect people, we send them to either Indianapolis for state government, or we send them to Washington, D.C. for our national government, and we actually have what's called a actually it's a constitutional democratic republic. We vote for representatives, and then the representatives run the government for us. He believed, James Madison, that the common good could be served by people pursuing their own self-interest, and that would contribute to the general prosperity. He also realized, though, that we are self-interested people, and that by everyone pursuing their own self-interest, this might go against the interests of others in the common good. And so his famous quote, if all people were angels, there would be no need for government. So he realized that there was this need because, yes, we all pursue our self-interest, but what happens if the will of the majority overtook huge minority rights? So he favored a constitution with limited government, this idea of separation of powers and checks and balances. And then actually the basic concepts of American democracy that we believe in the United States, the first one is the fundamental worth and dignity of every person. Second one is the respect for equality of all, and this is very important. Respect for equality, when the Founding Fathers wrote this, did not mean equality of condition. We are not all born into the same families in terms of how much money our families have, how affluent our families are, how much power they have, whether it's in business or politics. But it was the idea that everyone had equal opportunities and that everyone would be equal before the law. And then the idea of majority rule, but we had to always keep in mind the minority rights. The idea of compromise was very important when they wrote this, and I think that's one of the problems that we're having today is both sides, Republicans and Democrats, just really do not want to compromise. And then the last concept of our democracy is the widest possible degree of individual freedom.